Let's talk about levers. So, when we think about levers, we might think of using leverage if I'm trying to move a big boulder. So I'm in my yard, and there's a big boulder that I want to unearth. So what I do is I take a stick, and I try and prop that stick underneath the rock, and then I'm using my weight here by pushing down to try and do what? Dislodge that stick. That's essentially the function of levers. So in the human body we have them too. We have levers, call them our bones. What acts upon the levers? Our muscles. Our muscles have an attachment, and then of course what we sometimes have to do is to move not just the bone but sometimes load. All right? So think of this being a dumbbell in your hand. So when we talk about how to create movement, things that we have to consider is, where is the fulcrum? The fulcrum is the point around which this lever is moving. So it could be at the very end, right? Think of your knee creating the lever of the shin bone, right? It could be somewhere in between, right? Think of this as your C1, C2, and what we have is a skull sitting on top of it, and there's mass on either side of it, right? And then of course there's weight or loads being placed in different positions. But if you think about it, when you go to the gym and you do, say, dumbbell curls, you might be able to do 20 pounds with dumbbell curls. But then you walk over to the, say, the calf raise, and you get onto the standing calf raise, and you decide, I'm going to do some standing calf raises, and you notice you can do 250 pounds. Why is it that you can do 10 times the amount of weight on the calf raise, which targets your gastroc and your soleus, which are muscles that are not much bigger than your bicep? Well, it's got to do with the type of lever that you have. So in physics, we talk about 3 types of levers, and they apply in the human body. So to explain, let's use this lever as the bone, right? And we have to consider, if we're going to get movement or balance this lever, we have to consider the length of the arm and the amount of load or force being placed on it. That's what creates the net movement. Now, if I wanted to balance this, sure, the easiest thing for me to do is if I had a load here, would be to match it with an even load on the other side, but it would have to be contingent on one thing. These arms were the same length. Because if I made it here, where the arms are now different lengths, and I put a weight out here, this is going to easily tilt. I'm going to need a lot much more force on this side to hold this thing up. So we talk about that word in terms of the mechanical advantage. Where do you have a mechanical advantage, or where do you have a mechanical disadvantage? The mechanical advantage is where you don't have to use the muscles as much. The mechanical disadvantage is where, unfortunately, the load and the arm are working against you, so you have to use a lot more muscle work. And that would be the mechanical disadvantage on a bicep curl and the mechanical advantage on a standing calf raise. But let's just kind of go into these very quickly. So the first class lever, basically a fulcrum in the middle. You have a load here, which means this thing wants to displace itself like this, so I have to match it with the load on that side. Classic example is our head. Here's your spine. Right, there's the fulcrum with the skull, but most of your mass is on this side of, this is the front of your face. So what we have is basically a lot of weight pushing down on this side of the lever. Let's call the head the lever. So what I need, if force is pulling down, this head would tilt itself. So I need a muscle that's going to attach here and pull that head back down. So that would be your cervical extensors that help keep the head in this position. Right, that's a basic example of a first class lever. Second class lever, easiest way to describe it, looks like a wheelbarrow. So what do we have? We have a fulcrum here. And what do you have in a wheelbarrow? You're holding it at this end and the load goes in the middle. So now if you think about it, the lever, the arm is much longer for your force than it is for the load, which means that becomes an advantage for you, right? Which means you can actually hold a lot more weight with a lot less effort, right, in a second class lever. That's the calf raise. If you think of your calf raise, your weight is coming straight down your foot through the ankle, all right? You are lifting yourself up. The ball of the foot's the pivot point, so there's the ball of the foot. Your weight is coming through here, but your gastroc muscles are out here. That's what's lifting you up, and the soleus are out here. That's why you get that advantage. The bicep, by comparison, is the third class lever, and that's where we have what? Now we have a fulcrum here, call it the elbow. You have this long forearm, and you put a dumbbell in your hand right there. But where's the bicep attaching? All the way here, right on the beginning of your arm, your forearm. So your bicep is attaching here, but the dumbbell's all the way out there. So now the length of the arm favors the load. And that's what makes this a third class lever. So the biceps curl is a classic one there. And that helps explain why you can't lift as much weight with a bicep curl as you can on a standing calf raise.